So, welcome to the first episode of our new series on digital transformation in higher education. I'm Marc Morley, and I'm honoured to be joined by two wonderful guests today. Abri Hoffman, the Head of Digital Transformation at SARUA, the Southern African Regional Universities Association, and Gary Hardy, founder of Executive Education Online. In this first episode, we'll be demystifying digital transformation, what it is, why it matters, and how universities across Southern Africa can lead the change. So, gentlemen, a warm welcome to you both. Thank you for joining me today. Can I ask for a very brief introduction from you both before we dive into today's topic? Maybe we can go to you first, Gary.
Thanks, Mark. As Mark said, I'm the owner and founder of Executive Education Online. My background, for a long time, I didn't mention how long, but it's a long time, has been focused on the opportunity of technology and the frustration that sometimes comes with it, and it's my interest is the focus on the business side and the leadership that can come from that can make a big difference. But we'll unravel all of that as we go through today.
Thanks, Gary. Abri?
Thanks, Mark. So from my side, as Mark has mentioned, my name is Abri Hoffman. I am the Strategic Focus Area Lead for Digital Transformation at SARUA. And my background, not as long as Gary's, but long enough, has been very much in technology program and project management. So coordinating, facilitating, leading large programs and making sure that we deliver it successfully. So moving into digital transformation at SARUA, I'll play a similar role, not trying to be the spirit in terms of things, but rather being the gel and coordinating things. From my perspective.
Lovely. Thanks, Abri. So, Gary, let's kick things off. The term digital transformation gets thrown around a lot, and it can mean different things to different people. From your perspective, what is digital transformation, especially in the context of higher education?
Yeah, look, and it is a great question, and I guess there's a little bit of me that's frustrated that it can be seen as just another buzzword, another fad. But actually, I'm really pleased. It's the first time we've ever had a topic to do with IT. Or in fact, IT is another debate. And it's not talking about a particular technology. This is the first time that's happened. In the past, pretty well every new phase of IT or technology has been based on a particular type of technology. The last big one was cloud computing. But this time, I think, it's been recognized that digital is almost a never-ending now discussion or topic about all manner of technologies, not just IT, but all sorts of technologies. And the word transformation is key. It's a business change. It's a change. It's not one initiative with one new technology, but an ongoing mindset even about accepting that technology can change so many things, and the technologies are changing all the time. So from an higher educational point of view, look, and it's not just higher education. I mean, everyone in the world is dealing with this, even kids and schools and businesses everywhere. It's the belief that if we can change our mindset to appreciate that technology is an enabler of continual business change, and it's the business change that's important, then we'll be transforming continually. And that's really what digital transformation is about. Hopefully it'll be the last fad. And the last sort of buzzword is just the realization this is the way of life, and it's inescapable.
Yeah, and I think that the whenever we think of digital transformation, and certainly all the stuff that you see in LinkedIn or in the news, is there's too much focus on the technology, I think, and not enough focus on the actual change of the business. And the digital thing is just one of those things that can enable the business to transform.
Indeed.
Abri, if I can come over to you now, SARUA is playing a big role in bringing universities together. Why is regional collaboration so important when it comes to digital transformation, and how is SARUA helping institutions do more together than they could alone?
Thanks, Mark. Just to take one step back and focus on what Gary has said in terms of this transformation. So although the focus is digital transformation, as Gary has rightly mentioned, it's more of a business transformation. Now, universities on their own have been busy with such transformation for a long time. And as you say, will continue with that. the power actually for SARUA lies in the fact that we built this network, and we can strengthen and accelerate progress, reduce cost, and build stronger regional impact through the power of the network. So it goes far beyond what a single institution can do. If you just think about, for instance, about large institutions focusing on large initiatives, implementation, etc., and we lose the ability to start thinking forward. But by using this network and the power of the network, while one is busy implementing, another can start doing strategic analysis and planning, etc., etc. So bringing this network together and looking at this network, we are approaching 100 member institutions in SARUA, in SADC. So it's a large network with a lot of knowledge and expertise. So the network can establish shared vision and digital transformation consortiums. We can pool resources and shared infrastructure. We can build common digital learning ecosystems, and we can encourage joint capacity building and facilitate training. We can also encourage centralized data and research collaborations, leverage regional and global partnerships, and create and educate shared practices on things like governance and program and project management and cybersecurity. So when we think about SARUA and we think about digital transformation, we're thinking about the power of the network, not an organization, not an individual, but this number of members from various universities across the spectrum of digital, whether it be teaching and learning, research, administration, whatever the case might be. So by bringing together all of these members and use the benefit of it, we really think and believe that we can take the universities on this journey of digital transformation.
Thanks, Abri. Coming back to you now, Gary, we know that transformation isn't easy. Any form of change is likely to be met with resistance. What do institutions need to get right, from leadership through to planning, to make digital transformation successful?
Look, that's a big question. You mentioned change. And look, maybe just to emphasize also going up what Abri was just talking about, that the network and the collaboration is in every direction. And every project in the past has suffered a little bit from, first of all, the internal inability to work together, the business and IT. It's been an issue ever since I can remember, which is also a long, long time. And it's been, top issues for CIOs and business leaders, that for some reason we cannot seem to collaborate together properly. And in the worst case, it becomes a finger pointing thing. Now, with digital transformation, this is on a bigger scale, and involves not just the internal relationship between, in higher education, the leaders in the educational side, the people who administer the education in the university, but the students. It also involves the people who provide all these new technologies. And at one end, it's the infrastructure, what we might call the traditional IT, which now has to cope on a bigger scale and provide a much more reliable service, because when we start to expand the use of these technologies, and people in the educational space are going to be working from home, working all over the place, it has to be much more reliable. It needs to be secure, another big challenge that everyone talks about. But the network should enable much greater cohesion and even negotiating powers with external parties. And so the change is going to be more than just, a new technology. It's trying to change the whole mindset to work together with multiple parties, internally and externally, leverage the experiences around the world, because, we're not way behind in South Africa, but we're not way ahead. And there certainly are institutions in other parts of the world that have already achieved certain things. So it's all about collaboration. But the other issue with change, and just to finish on this, is that change generally seems to create fear. But, and from my own experience and my own life experience, it's the opportunity to do better. And I think it's incumbent upon you talked about leaders. It's important that the leaders drive a culture of positive, advancement, that this is improving things. It's not producing barriers. It's not producing new worries. It's providing opportunities for everyone to deliver, in the educational space particularly, better results for students, better experiences, and a much more efficient way of doing that. So it's a big topic, but it's part of the transformation. It is a transformation, which means it is a change, and therefore that's got to be addressed in a positive way. Maybe the last thing to mention, Mark, which in the IT world is a typical mistake people make, is to treat these things as a huge, big one step. It's not. It's going to be continually small steps, and the leaders need to instill somehow this realization that we're not going to jump into this in one big jump. We're going to do this step by step and learn as we go, and prevent the danger of the people on the technical side wanting to do, big things on a big scale.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to note there, is that this kind of big bang theory that, you have to do these things as a big one-time project that's got start and finish, and it's going to all be done. These are, the most successful digital transformations have not been transformation projects. They've just been an evolution of the business, including all those things that you mentioned formerly, but not just a one-time big thing. Abri, can we talk about real impact? What are some of the tangible changes that universities can expect from digital transformation, both from students and staff?
Well, from a impact perspective, we need to look at digital transformation not purely just from the impact perspective, but rather from what are those areas that Gary has mentioned that will impact, and looking at these small incremental changes. Now, in order to do that, we have started off looking at a framework, designing the framework around 7 pillars of digital transformation, which span from education and research and teaching and learning, etc., that then fans out into 27 key elements of transformation. And these would include things like pedagogy and procurement, etc., etc. So if I have to summarize this and say where the impact will be, we expect to see impact immediately in terms of student experience, because we'll learn from each other. This framework is developed by the community of practice of the SARUA digital transformation. It is researched, it is applied to our own region of SADC, making sure that whatever we do is applicable to what happens here. A simple example of that might be that there is a piece of research that we've applied for funding in terms of innovative teaching and learning instructional design, where we look at different types of things. By way of example, in 2020, when we had the pandemic, there's a big impact globally in terms of how we swivel from contact teaching into online teaching. But in our region, we see this on a daily or weekly basis. It may be electricity interruptions or water interruptions. Students can't go onto campus and need to move on. So in actual fact, as Gary has mentioned, we have the opportunity to leapfrog and say, let's rethink the way we do things. But more than that, we can also optimize operations. We'll be able to support faculty in terms of what we are doing. And when we talk about faculty, we talk about administration in terms of what needs to be done. Through the development of a maturity model or maturity framework that we're looking at, we would be able to pinpoint, identify exactly what those pain points are. And at the same time, also identify institutions in the network that have already dealt with it, who can guide and advise and teach. We'll expand our access and reach in terms of things, working with global corporates, etc., etc. And then lastly, the whole concept of data-driven decision-making. By pooling resource, by pooling intelligence, using the technology at our avail, and with the best resources in the network, we'd be able to make much better decisions, understanding what's happening, where it's happening, and how we'll apply it across the region and the network. So very exciting times, working with the community of practice, working with the network to develop this and see the implementation of digital transformation as we move forward. Thanks, Mark.
Absolutely. Thanks, Abri. Gary, with such big changes, there will always be inherent risks too. Could you point out what some of those common pitfalls universities might face are on this journey?
Yeah, look, I think no different to any big initiative, really. It's getting the objectives clear. I think the classic mistake made in pretty well every technology project, and we touched on this briefly already, is starting with the solutions, not starting with the things that we ought to be changing as a business outcome, and being driven by that from a strategic point of view. So in this particular case, look, and just to actually, now I'm listening to Abri here. I mean, there can't be that many types of organizations that can collaborate in this manner. You're not going to get businesses in retail working together. You're not going to get even governments across countries working together. But uniquely, we have the opportunity for universities, and it will trickle down to schools, having this particular opportunity. And I'm hoping that what will happen initially will be a collective agreement on where the best business value could be generated as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. So rather than looking at the biggest challenges and worrying about the biggest pains, is to look for the quick wins and say, what could we all do, perhaps in 3 months or 6 months, even if it's small, collectively, that would show that we, first of all, can collaborate, and second, we can achieve some successful results quickly. Because the biggest risk with nearly every project is that they tend to go wrong, and then they tend to keep going wrong, and then gradually it gets to the point where the whole thing has lost its origin, and sadly years pass sometimes. I mean, I've seen examples where 5 to 10 years have passed and people are still spending money and still can't say what they were trying to achieve in the first place. So I think we've got a unique unique opportunity to deal with the most fundamental of all the risks. The other big risk, which we also touched on, is that the capabilities, and Abri talked about, the architecture and the pillars and so forth, is to understand the real width of capabilities needed. And in digital transformation, the danger will be that people will home in on only the technology capabilities. Abri is emphasizing the range of sort of business capabilities, from administration to education and so forth. And then the capability on top of all of that is being able to oversee and lead these things properly. And for the senior members of the universities, who mostly will fear this, they mostly will think, I'm not clever enough. If I stick my toe into this hot water, I might get into big trouble. But the advantage of the collaboration across the universities will be that we're not in it alone, and that the vice chancellors, the people who, really want their university to move forward well, can work together and take on the mantle of being the leaders and being the ones that would avoid the danger of no one actually leading this. It's like the dog wagging the tail. It's got to be the other way around. So they're the two main ones that I would argue. I mean, there are others like security and so forth, but everything comes down from those top two.
Thanks, Gary. Abri, if we can come to you for a final time now. We've all spoken about the power of collaboration and the need for it. How can the SARUA community of practice support leaders to overcome the risks that Gary's just mentioned and successfully lead these transformations?
Mark, it's an interesting concept, and we've been thinking and deliberating around how it can happen. Now, the community of practice has just been formed with a good representation throughout the region, and we have leaders in digital transformation. So by doing that, what we are establishing is, we call it, by the lack of a different word, an internal consultancy. So having had this community of practice with the expertise that we have in there, we're not dependent on external consultants to advise and develop and tell us what to do. Now, there are pockets of excellence that we've seen in the past. About 8-9 years ago, 7 universities collaborated on developing a single online application system and pooled funds in terms of it. Now, it was very successful. The cost was spread across 7 universities, whereas each of them would have paid it. The learnings was there. The implementation was swift and successful. And we've learned that when we look at it from that perspective, universities really aren't that different. Now, imagine if we can do this across 100 institutions. and what we can learn and how we can do it and so forth. So it's really focusing on those items. It's also collaboration with our suppliers and our corporate partners in order to make sure we are able to provide the requirements much more focused. So once again, not dependent on these large providers to tell us what we need, but we're able to tell them what we need. So looking at the community of practice, looking at the development of it, looking at the development of the frameworks, assessment of our maturity, understanding who are those that is stronger and can advise, who are those that we need. And as Gary's mentioned earlier, it's a matter of making sure that we focus on the pertinent points, not trying to eat this whole elephant in one bite, but breaking it down and work where we can work in terms of it. So the community of practice will then help develop the required skills for both leaders and technologists, and it will be able to sponsor and drive how the universities can transform. When we start thinking about it a lot broader, as we mentioned, we may think of combined or collaborative procurement, how we do that, understanding which the organizations are that we deal with most successfully and where we get the most benefit from that. And lastly, I just want to say, in the sense of Ubuntu, better together, we can overcome resistance to change and provide a guiding coalition. Coordinate communication and success stories to drive a passionate change mindset while focusing on learning from mistakes and taking small steps as a group. So really believe that by utilizing this network, we move forward and make sure that each of the members of this network benefit from it.
Wonderful. Abri, for anyone listening or watching that wants to get involved and wants to help and contribute, what's the best way for them to do that?
So in order to reach out, you could always go to this SARUA website. There is contact details there. The terms of reference of the community of practice would be there. The individuals who participate there is also there. We're also doing on a regular basis webinars. We will do this podcast series and other podcast series like this. Be on the lookout on LinkedIn. There are constantly something being mentioned or advertised or posted. And you'll see more and more of the community of practice, the leadership that we have there, and collaboration from that perspective. So over the next year, you would expect to see a lot less from me and a lot more from the community of practice. But by just reaching out to any of those platforms, you will be able to find who's working on what and how you can find help.
Wonderful. Thanks, Abri. Well, I'm going to bring this to a close now. This was our first episode. We wanted to make it short and sharp, and I think that's what we've done. So I want to thank you both for joining me today and kicking off this new series. This is just the start. We now have a strong foundation upon which to build, and over the next 12 episodes, Gary and Abri will be unpacking topics that matter most to university leaders, from strategy and governance to data and partnerships and more. And you better find this series on YouTube and leading podcast channels. So please remember to give the episode a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I just want to end now by thanking everyone for joining us and listening in. Please make sure you look out for episode 2, which will be coming very soon. Thank you again. Thanks, guys.